XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
Hello everyone, welcome to ProAV TV. Thank you very much for joining me for another one of these weekly little informal Q&A sessions. We do these every Monday if you're new around here. Every Monday, the exact same time, where you do one of these, and the whole idea here is I haven't prepared anything. I spend the first sort of 5 minutes just talking through anything that's happened this week, any new deals and promotions, things like that are going on, but then all of the rest of it, it could last 20 minutes, it could last the whole hour. It is all depending on what you guys put down in the comment section here on YouTube or on Facebook. I can see everything that you guys are all writing here on the laptop in front of me. And basically, we just talk about whatever you want us to talk about. So it's a great way to talk about different pieces of kit that we might not otherwise talk about on the channel, or just answer any questions you may have. So this week we had a fantastic stream with Blackmagic earlier on last week, which went very well. It was on the Pocket camera, so this is the Pocket 6K Pro here next to me, and we just did a little overview with Chris Javin from Blackmagic on the Pocket 6K Pro and the Pocket lineup as a whole, and then we had a little Q&A session afterwards. We've got another one coming up on Thursday for the 8M line, so particularly focusing on the 8M minis, so it's called web broadcasting. So let me just show you that here on the website. If you come down, our latest content is always down here on the bottom right hand side of the website, by the way. And so up the top there, creating compelling web broadcasting content with Chris Javin. Here we go. So this is the stream on Thursday. Oh, it still says Tuesday 11th of March there in the title. My mistake, it's not tomorrow, it is Thursday. So that is going to be quite a good stream going through the 8M minis, which is nice because it's not something we talk about a huge amount outside of these streams anyway on the channel, so it would be nice to sit down and go into the nitty-gritty of those products for Chris. Both of these two streams with Blackmagic aren't available to watch online afterwards, so make sure you do try and catch this live if you're interested in it. They are going to be available to watch online afterwards, but there's going to be a couple of weeks afterwards just because of the way Blackmagic want to do it, which is fine, it's up to them. But they will be available to watch live eventually, but as of now these are live only, so make sure you are joining that live if you want to know and want to see it. There's a few other big promotions going on at the moment. There's the ones which have been going on for a while. So Canon have got a fantastic 0% interest-free offer across a huge amount of their products, including all sorts of lenses, all of the big L series lenses, all of the cinema lenses, some of their biggest cameras, you know, there's the C500 Mark II, things like that. The R5, I believe, is on there. There's a load of interesting products. Basically, if you're interested in buying anything Canon related at all, make sure you check out that, to check whether it's on there if you want to do it on 0% finance. Sony have also got one. I believe that one is just on the FX9 at the moment. But if you're interested in the market for an FX9, worth knowing about. And then there's a couple of others. So Hollyland have got their spring sale, which is 10% off the Mars 300 Pro. So that's whether you buy it as a set or individually. But this is their little wireless. There's their 300 Pro and the 400S Pro. It's on both of them. So you can save 50 quid off of the 400S Pro, which is a fantastic little device from Hollyland. It's just pretty much the best Wi-Fi based wireless video transmission system out there. It's really quite convenient and can go to apps on iPhones and iPads at the same time as going to the receiver for a proper monitor. So it's a really, really simple and cheap way of setting your entire production up wirelessly. It's Wi-Fi based, so there's a little more latency than there is on other things like Teradeks or the SWIT ones, for example, which use actual proper wireless technology, RF technology. These use Wi-Fi, so it's a little bit less predictable and a little bit varying latency time. Sometimes it might be amazing, sometimes it might have a bit of latency. And the same thing for quality, depending on how good the signal is, basically. But as a Wi-Fi based system, this is pretty much the best one on the market, and you save a good 50 quid ex-VAT on that at the moment, which is always nice to have. Pano have also got a deal on, so with the S5 you get a MC21 lens adapter, which I believe is the PL one, is it? Actually, I should have checked this before. Let's see which one the MC21 is. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, it's the EF to L mount. That's what it is. Of course, the MT11 is the EF to E mount. So yeah, to stick Canon EF mount ones onto the S5, that's the free adapter, which is brilliant because loads of people have got EF glass. There's also a 400 quid trade-in deal when you, up to 400 quid when you trade in one of your current mirrorless cameras or DSLRs for a S5. And if you get an S1H, you get a free Ninja 5 so all of these Pano ones are live until the 29th of March. So they've only got the rest of this month up on them. So if you're interested in Pano, make sure you do it this month rather than next month, and you get those deals, which is always nice. I think that's about it on the deal front. Obviously, there's a bunch of new products. There's the Rode Wireless Go, the FX3, all the new Blackmagic bits. But yeah, I believe, just do a quick scroll through. Oh, there's the new Atmos Ninja Pro kit as well for SDI RAW, which is a fantastic advancement. And Sony have got some PTZ bundles. There we go. So save really healthy amount. Like this is £3,500 saved on. You have to buy 5 cameras and a controller, sure, for 20 grand, but it's still £3,500 worth of savings, which is pretty incredible, really. Okay, let's get on to questions. So we've got Tyler Penrod saying, I've seen reports of the Blackmagic 6K Pro having colour shift issues, presumably from the NDs. Have you seen this yourself? So we've done a bunch of testing with the Pocket. We're going to be releasing a whole load of videos over the next coming weeks, going in depth with the 6K Pro, its strengths, its flaws, all the rest of it. As with any Blackmagic release, to be quite honest, remember, I do want to put it into perspective when talking about these cameras, because these are affordably priced cameras. I mean, they still cost several thousands of pounds, of course, but compared to a lot of other cameras on the market, particularly at this kind of specs, Blackmagic have brought these in at a pretty incredible price point. And so there's always going to be compromises for them to be able to do that. So we can't expect cameras at this price point to be perfect, and we have to keep that in mind. That being said, there are a few current problems. You mentioned color shift issues, presumably from the NDs. There's a couple of things I've seen talked about. One is the normal IR pollution with the NDs, and we've got a test of that we are going to be releasing soon. There is the images do get slightly more magenta as you go up through, but if you do a custom white balance after you apply each ND, that pretty much goes away. You can get around it, because it's not too crazy. It's not as crazy as it was on the original Pockets. but it is there. The one I see people talking about the most, though, is what they call a blue tint on the LCD. And some people have been saying it's been creeping into footage, but I don't think that's right. I think that's just people messing up their white balance because of the colour shift on the monitor. But I haven't seen any customers that have had that yet. But we have got customers with the blue tint on the LCD, and actually this model here does have it as well. It is a batch problem with LCDs, we think, but Blackmagic are very confident that they can fix it in firmware. So the current message from Blackmagic is hang tight. There should be a firmware update very soon to improve that, which is very good. But apart from that, we have done some side-by-side tests with the original, and it is just as good image quality as the original, and the extra features really make it a much more friendly and convenient camera to use, which is fantastic. So there will be a few things to iron out at first, but I think they will get sorted, which is good. Okay, there's no more questions. So if anyone's got any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, this will be quite a short one. We're just doing so much streams at the moment. We've already answered all your questions, haven't we? So what we're planning to do with the Pocket is I put out, I don't know if any of you saw it, but a little community post saying, well, let me bring it up actually. We put out this community post, which basically just said to you guys, look, what questions do you want answered on this? And we got a huge amount of responses. We got 59 responses, look, and some brilliant questions in there. So what we've done is we've grouped them into areas. So we've grouped them into battery life, monitoring, lenses, autofocus and ND filters, and then just general image quality and recording modes, and sort of, is it different to the originals? So we're going to be releasing that as a series over the next couple of weeks, just as we find time to actually make the videos, so that we can get those answers out there to you guys. Okay, video editor bloke's coming in with a couple of questions, which is nice. Thank you very much, mate. Okay, so what I'd be keen to see on this channel is options for rigging cameras like the FX6 and similar, so they could potentially be used on the shoulder, cages, plates, power, EVF, etc. I've heard both Philip Bloom and Alice Chapman mention they've been working to find the optimum setup. I know the FX9 is the camera to go to for the best camera setup, but sometimes you're after something that can be more flexible, so the FX6 hits that sweet spot. I completely agree with you. The difficulty that I've always had on this channel talking about anything rigging based and talking to customers in general, because remember we talked to an awful lot of customers outside of this YouTube channel, in the showroom and everything. The main issues that I have is that it's a very subjective area. So the way that I rig up a camera wouldn't necessarily be the way that Alice Chapman rigs up a camera, which wouldn't necessarily be the way Philip Bloom rigs up a camera. And I bet you anything, when Philip or Alistair releases that content on the way that they've done the optimum setup, as you could call it, they will be different. They will have differences because they work in different ways. They're different people. That's fine. So there's that. There's also that I am somebody who sits here talking about cameras all day, every day, rather than actually being out there using them like Philip Bloom and Alistair is. So in terms of who's the best person to tell you what the best way to rig up a camera is, to be honest, I normally find customers are better at telling me what they need rather than me telling them what they need. So I tend to, when talking to customers about that sort of thing, listen to what the customers want rather than trying to tell them what I think they should do. And so obviously in a video I can't do much listening. It all has to be about telling. So that's the reason, to be brutally honest, that I don't do much content on rigging and support gear around the cameras. I would love to do to sort of try and get the rigs for each camera all in the same place at the same time. Might well be something we look at doing in the future. Again, to be brutally honest, the only reason we don't do that and just sort of run you through the options is the logistics of putting it together. It would be quite a big project. And it's just simply the time and energy and the amount of hours that me and Dan having the day to be able to do that. But it would be fantastic content. I would love to make that and put that together, because that would be a good one to work on. So yeah, probably not the answer you're looking for, but I do agree that it would be fantastic. And to be honest, I am more interested in seeing what people like Philip Bloom and Alistair, and how they rig those cameras up. And both of those are people that we work with very regularly on the channel and haven't worked with actually for a couple of months now. So I'm very much looking at doing more content with each of those, because I think this channel, because it's a dealer, it shouldn't just be my voice on this channel. This isn't Carl's channel. This is ProAV's channel. And so I do very much want to hear from people like that on the best way that they found to work, that they work with their kit. And then if we get several different opinions and different voices on the channel, the better it is for you guys sitting at home, and the more people you can learn from in one place. So if you ever want or have any ideas of things that you would like to see people like that talk about, or people that you would like us to talk to, do let me know, because I'm very open to working with people like that. Okay, let's crack on. Yeah, Loom is saying, please talk with Philip Bloom about more stuff. We definitely will be talking with Bloom more. Bloom is somebody who is very lucky to be able to play with a huge amount of equipment. He's got some great relationships with a lot of different manufacturers and dealers like us, so he gets access to a lot of equipment, and so therefore can talk quite a lot about the differences between things. So he's a great person to have on the channel as a different voice. So we were definitely looking at working with Philip more. Bear in mind though, of course, it's all about the way that he wants to work and the way that what he likes about cameras. So with all of this stuff, I try and be very objective and not put too much of my own opinion on what we make, more about what I hear from customers mixed in with a bit of my own opinion. Whereas someone like Philip, for example, is just going to come at you with what they think, and that's great, and that's exactly why they're there. So just keep that in mind, and I will try and make sure I get a variety of voices on this channel. But yeah, we will definitely be doing more. Okay, let's go back and answer some of these questions. Camille is saying, what's your opinion about the Blackmagic Mini Extreme? I think it looks fantastic. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet because I'm waiting for the Extreme ISO, which hasn't quite shipped yet. The normal Extreme is shipping and is out with customers. In case nobody knows, I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, but let's just bring it up on the website in case you don't. 8M Mini Extreme, the Extreme ISO, there we go. So this is the biggest, latest, greatest 8M Mini from Blackmagic. So we'll be talking about this quite a lot on the stream on Thursday. And it basically takes everything the 8M Mini does and doubles it, if not more. It just adds more of everything. So it's not going to be right for everyone. Some people, the 8M Mini was the perfect little setup. But for someone who needs more than that, this is what they need. In a great middle ground between a small little 8M Mini and a much larger production system like the one we're using, the TriCaster that we're using for these streams. It's a great little piece of kit. Okay, any thoughts or knowledge on the upcoming Canon C70, says Loom. Sorry, not C70, that's already out. That's been out for ages. The C50. Okay, well, the way my normal stock response anytime everyone asks about an unreleased camera, the way that it works is if I knew anything, I would be under an NDA, and so I wouldn't be able to tell you that I knew anything or answer anything. The C50, let me boot up canonrumours.com and see what they're saying about it. I haven't gone over to Canon Rumours to have a little look in a few days. It's always worth checking out. Oh God, Crazy RX1. I have seen these. It's CR0 though, so keep all of these with a pinch of salt. Anything about an R1, keep that with a pinch of salt. Okay, the R50. Where's the R50? More lenses. Yeah, I'm sure that's likely to come in. Camera like a company like Canon don't stop making lenses. Is this a C50? Okay, video products coming in 2021. XF505. I would love to see that, a smaller camcorder than the XF705. I would love to see that halfway between the XF705 and the XF405. I would love to see one of those. XC20 replacement for the XC15. Again, would love to see those. The XC15, we've sold loads of those. They are not exactly the most exciting camera in the world, but they are a very practical choice. And so I would love to see them release a new one of those. And here's that C50. Okay, yeah, I know there's been loads of rumours going around, very different ones as well, which makes me think that it's not true. Same sensor as the C200, no IBIS with an RF mount. Okay, no RAW, 8-bit internal, really? Dual LP. Okay, so this I find hard to believe, and this I find hard to believe. Essentially, apart from that, they're basically just describing a C70, but with a C200 sensor rather than a C300 Mark III sensor, which I think would be very sensible of them. However, and I think these frame rates would make sense to have a smaller camera underneath the C70. I think dual LP6NA, maybe I suppose because it's a smaller one under the C70. The BPA batteries are quite expensive, but I don't think they'd be going 8-bit internally. Maybe they would, but considering the mirrorless cameras have got 10-bit now, I would like them not to, as I'm sure all of you would as well. Okay, let's stop talking about Canon rumors. Okay, can you speak to the image difference, if any, between current cinema and camcorders and proper broadcast cameras such as Grass Valley, Sony, Hitachi using B4 lenses? There's a big image quality difference. The main image quality difference is the sensor size, which does make a huge difference. The sensor size on even current camcorders, where really they max out at 1 inch, is going to be the main difference between those and sort of cinema cameras like this. Apart from that, camcorders are getting way better. If you look at footage from the XF705, for example, or the Panasonic CX350, they are images that would not have been coming out of camcorders even 3 years ago. Particularly the XF705, I think that camera has a lovely, lovely image, if anything just as good as some of their cinema cameras. In terms of proper broadcast cameras, they have an even smaller sensor, and so I mean they are very good, but to get really good ones you need to be spending a lot of money on the Grass Valley and everything like that. I mean, you're only going to be getting those in proper broadcast places where they're sent in by rental companies. We haven't sold one of those cameras other than to a big rental company in a very long time. Those are rented. They are done on a production basis and stuck into big OB trucks and all the rest of it. So really anyone doing anything other than high-end broadcast like sports games and stuff are using that sort of proper broadcast cameras, like you say. Camcorders are still used a huge amount. I know they don't get talked about a huge amount, but they are used a huge amount, simply because they're so much more convenient than cinema cameras like that. But yeah, the image quality on those, people still think of them as being the same as they were 5 years ago, and there are some camcorders on the market which are very much like that. But particularly newest ones like the Canon 705 and the Panasonic CX350 have just got stunning image quality. They really do. Okay, Cubase Elementary. Okay, Photo Joseph, YouTuber and Panasonic ambassador, recently posted a video about the Micro Four Thirds, which ended with "There's much more to come. Is this the first hint that the GH6 is finally on its way?" I've got a clue. I don't know what Photo Joseph does with his content. I don't know whether he's been told anything. Same deal as with the Canons. If I had been told something, I wouldn't be able to tell you because I would be under an NDA. But there's been a long wait with the GH6, and Panasonic have said lots of times that the Micro Four Thirds line is not the end for them, and it's been a long time since the GH5 release. So I would imagine a GH6 is on its way. It's just how far away is it? We don't know. And what will it be able to do? We don't know. I hope it's a nice leap forwards, because the GH5 was a big leap forwards in terms of capability. But yeah, how do you leap forwards in terms of what we've currently got? We've already got 4K 120p mirrorless cameras. We've already got 10-bit. We've got RAW in some cameras. You know, what do they need to add? What would you like to see them add? I would love to see them redo even if it was just a GH5 with a new autofocus system that works just as well as Canon or Sony's on some sort of a hybrid level. Even that would make me happy enough. But what would you guys like to see in a GH6? Okay, Loom. What camera do you own in private? Well, that sounds almost sordid. What camera do you own in private, and what are you filming on, if so, in your own private life? I assume you just mean outside of my work here at ProAV. I own a Fuji X-T3. I don't use it enough. I only really use it for family photos, basically photos of my family, photos of my cat, photos of my friends, kids, and all the rest of it. So no, I don't use it anywhere near as enough as I should do. Lots of the other tech team here actually do proper filming out and about outside of work. I used to do quite a lot of it, filming web series and all the rest of it. I haven't done anything like that in a good few years, simply because I've just taken on more and more responsibilities here at ProAV and got more and more busy, and so I value my weekends to rest. Where I would like to, but to be honest, I do find the work here at ProAV, all the streams for you guys, all the videos, creatively coming up with them and making them, I do find quite creatively fulfilling, which is almost sad in some ways, because of course it's nowhere near as creative fulfilling as doing narrative work, but at the same time, narrative work is a lot of work, and passion projects to do sort of short films or web series take up a huge amount of time and energy and resources outside of work. And so I find it hard nowadays to commit to lengthy projects like that, because work is just so unpredictable. You know, look at the last couple of months and how many camera releases we've had. My job is quite unpredictable, and so I don't do as much as I would like to, but a lot of the guys here do. So Dan does some projects, and our tech consultant Sam does lots of projects as well. So we do things. In terms of other cameras, Dan, do you mind me telling them what camera you have?
GH5.
GH5, yeah. So Dan owns a GH5 with an Olympus lens, I believe. The one that push and pulls for manual focus. I can't remember what focal length it is. It's the 12 to 40, is it? 12 to 40 Olympus lens. And Sam, I believe, owns a C300 Mark 1 from back in the days. But often, to be honest, we just borrow equipment from here to get to use it better, get to know it better. Okay. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you for that, because we've all got sort of necessarily got the latest and greatest, but when you've got access to all the, you know, we've got an R5 here in the showroom, we've got an A7S Mark III, we've got the Pocket 6K, we've got the C500 Mark II, we've got a lot of very lovely cameras here in the showroom, which we are very lucky to get access to every single day. So, and of course we need to know very well, and so the more we can use them outside of work as well, I do try and encourage the guys to do that. So we are very lucky with access to equipment here, the staff, which is lovely. Okay, where have I got to? Andreas, will there be another series of Tech Talk videos with Alistair? They were pretty nice. I would love to do more of that, actually. They were really nice. Yes, and I'd be interested in more topics as well. So if you think there's things which we haven't covered, let me know. I will go back at some point and try and think of more things to cover with that. But yes, I would love to do more with Alistair. I'd also like to do similar ones on maybe colour terms with Ollie Kensington, things like that. There's lots there we could do. Because I think there's lots of scope for slightly less formal training and explanation videos than a lot of the stuff you normally get, like their MZ courses, for example. Okay, video editor bloke, or at least look at EVF monitoring options, since some of the new cameras are ditching their EVFs. Understand all the problems. Oh, talking about the rigging points. Yes, well, we're going to be looking at the EVF on the Pocket 6K Pro. Lots of them are ditching their EVFs, absolutely. Still need to find some really good monitoring options. Not enough companies are making them. There's the little Porkies one. There's the ones that are specific, like Canon makes specific ones and Blackmagic makes specific ones. There's the Scusa ones, obviously. There's the Chameleon and the Graticals, but not huge amounts. Cameron, what are your thoughts on the Panasonic BGH1 for live streaming and a B camera? I think it's a great choice. I mean, the live streaming stuff really, the BGH1 excels when you're doing it as multi-camera because you can, without having to rig up a proper big solution, control them from a computer with multi-camera work. BGH1 is a specific sort of camera. It's not necessarily a jack of all trades camera. But it's a nice one. It's a very nice one for operating remotely off of a computer or something like that. So for cameras which have to be rigged up high or at the end of a crane or something like that, the BGH1 is a very sensible choice, actually. I like it. Okay, Alvin, just received my C70. Thanks for the really fast delivery. You're very welcome. Would the standard RF to EF adapter support the 18 to 35mm lens as the 0.1 mount causes vignetting with the lens wide open? Yes, absolutely. It wouldn't be with the lens wide open, it would be the lens zoomed all the way out with the 0.71 mount adapter. The 0.71 mount adapter needs full frame glass, and the 18 to 35 is not a full frame glass. It actually, at the 35mm end, nearly covers full frame, but on the 18, nowhere near. You just get massive, huge vignetting, like not just a subtle vignetting, a real dark ring around your image. So it doesn't work. Yeah, the normal RF to EF adapter, all the ones with the NDs, or the one with the control ring, those ones are absolutely fine. That's exactly what you want. Okay, Lover of Tech, what's the setup you're using for this live stream? Quality is excellent. Very glad to hear the quality is good. What we're doing, I mean, we sell a lot of streaming kit here, so we're using a TriCaster 2 Elite. Well, let me show you it on the website, which is how we're able to do all of the TC2 Elite. Here we go. So they don't disclose pricing on this, but it's one of their flagship. It's not quite their flagship, but it's pretty much their flagship model for the TriCaster lineup, and it is very good. It's how we're able to do all of the different MEs and projects like that, and how we're able to do the pre-roll videos at the end just with one box. I wish I could show you actually Dan sitting over there working on it, but I don't. We haven't got a camera rigged up that way, so I can't show you that. But well, oh, here we go. So I can show you the interface of it. You'll get a little bit of infinity going on here, but so we get a hugely customizable display. Can you change that down to be the main multi-viewer 1, which is our main thing? If you cut off of it, you can just do it like this. Dun, 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 multi-viewer 1, there we go. So this is the main TriCaster layout, and we're only using a fraction of what this machine can do. It is huge. You get a huge amount of inputs and NDI sources and all the rest of it. So this is what we're using to mix and encode and run all the graphics. The camera is the Canon C300 Mark II, actually. It's the one we used to film all the videos on, which is now just living here as my streaming camera, basically. And yeah, that's it. So that's what we're using. Okay, where have I got to in questions? Thank you for all the questions. Since I asked for more questions, lots more have come in, which is brilliant. Right, how do I keep track of this? Okay, Marshall. Carl, is the sensor in the XF405 the same as the XF705? Can I list them as the same size but no details? They are the same size, 1 inch. I don't believe they're the same. They might be the same, just with very different processing. The image quality of the XF705 with all its log formats is definitely better than the 405. I can get much better results with the 705. But whether or not it's the same sensor or whether they're just doing very different processing, I'm not sure. But yes, they are the same size. They're both 1 inch. Okay, Mark, for what purposes is a camera like the Blackmagic and a camera like the FX3 in relation to each other? Okay, so they're both called cinema cameras. Philip Bloom actually did a really interesting video and point on this in his FX3, where he almost sort of thinks that we shouldn't be calling the those cameras cinema cameras anymore. We should be calling them video cameras and not being ashamed of that. You know, the term video cameras has come with a bit of negativity, and sort of a video image, which I think is something we need to learn to move away from as an industry, because there's nothing wrong with having a more video or TV style image than having a cinema image. You know, a cinema image naturally would be slightly lower contrast, lesser saturation, all the rest of it, simply because that the standard for Hollywood and all the rest of it for many years has been Arri cameras, and that is the look of that sensor. And so all the new cameras coming out, like the Sony Venice, for example, and most high-end cinema, and well, Blackmagic cameras all copy in their footsteps, and most cinema cameras that come out nowadays try and emulate that sort of Arri look, if you like. And so that's sort of what's become known as cinema. Whereas actually, if you look at good video and TV production, you know, something like the David Attenborough shows, you know, the anything like that. I've completely blanked on the name of the latest, Planet Earth and things like that. What are the latest ones of that? You know what I mean. The Natural History Unit at the BBC makes some fantastic work. And there's loads and loads of good projects like that. That's just the one that springs to mind. But they have what I would describe as the ideal video look, rather than the cinema look, like a Hollywood look. They look stunning, and I don't think anyone would argue with that, but they are very detailed. They are full of saturation and colour and life, and everything that you would normally not associate with a cinematic image. And so Bloom's sort of point is, it's okay for a camera to be a fantastic video camera, and doesn't have to be called a cinema camera. Although they're both called cinema cameras, I would describe the Blackmagic systems as being a little bit more like mini cinema cameras, like the sort of Arri look, if you like, whereas the FX3 and the Sony A7S Mark III as being really good video cameras. They can obviously look very similar, but they lend themselves much more to that really rich, detailed, vibrant look of that sort of show, which I find for corporate work and sort of online production is brilliant. Alvin has just said that. I really agree with Phil. I honestly don't believe the Sony FX and Cinema EOS cameras are cinema. They're simply high-end video cameras. I agree, but I wouldn't call them simply high-end video cameras. I don't think that is a lesser term. In fact, in many ways, I think it's a more desirable term than cinema. Cinema cameras I think of as being quite niche, quite shoehorned into, they are good at one little thing. Whereas video cameras, if you like the Cinema EOS cameras or the Sony FX6, as they are much more jack of all trade cameras, which can produce really cracking images in all sorts of situations. Whereas cinema cameras, take for example the Ursa Mini Pro is from Blackmagic is a very good example. You really want to be tailoring what you're shooting and the way you're shooting it in order to get the best results out of the camera. You know, you can't go to crazy high ISOs. You really want to be careful with what you do with that camera to get the best image. Whereas something like the FX6 or the Cinema EOS cameras, you can pretty much do whatever you want with and get fantastic imagery. I feel like that was a bit of a rambly answer, but hopefully that made sense. Blaz, it would be interesting to see some info on your setup. Oh, cool, just answered that. And have we tested the Blackmagic Design Ultra Studio Recorder 3G? No, a little bit, not massively, but yeah, it's much the same as the original Ultra Studio Recorder. It's pretty good. Okay. Lover of Tech, interesting to hear you using the X3. I use an X4 and X3, and I'm looking to switch over to the Sony A7 IV when it comes out to the lack of unlimited recording internally. Sure, absolutely. As a pure video tool, there's better options now really than the Fujis. The Fujis are great bang for buck. What I love about the Fujis is that the lenses are such high quality but also so small and quite affordable. But that is changing, you know, with the Sony, with the new little contemporary E-mount lenses from Sigma that we reviewed. They're full frame, good quality primes, and they're only sort of £500 or so, and they're really small. You know, that makes full frame all of a sudden much smaller and more affordable to get behind. And so, yeah, if I was choosing again from now, I probably would be going down that same sort of route. Or maybe the Canon R6, which is a cracking camera. I would very much be looking seriously at one of those. Is it possible to get a new C100 Mark I still, says Loom? A new one? I can't find one here. No, they're discontinued. You can't get a new one with DAF, I'm afraid. There are second-hand ones going about. We sometimes get second-hand ones traded in and out. But no, although you can still get the new C300 Mark II. And those are actually a really good price now. Let me see if we've got them on the website still. C300 Mark II. There we go. So the C300 Mark II is £5,895 ex-VAT, brand new, and you can get 24 months interest-free credit on it. So those are a very good deal. Now, that's the camera that's filming me right now. Not as good as the newest ones, the C300 Mark III, the C70, the rest of it, but it is still a fantastic workhorse camera. We've been using that for a long, long time. Okay, Cubase RE the GH6. I'd like a GH5S with IBIS and a Sony-like autofocus. So yeah, basically just taking the GH5, improving the low light, which I assume is what you mean by a GH5S, keeping the IBIS of the GH5 and adding that autofocus. If they did just that, I think it would be popular. I'm really hoping that they don't just do that. I'm hoping they do that and give us something new, something recording-wise, some sort of frame rates or resolutions that we just haven't had yet. Something to really show off how good Micro Four Thirds as a sensor size, its strength is that you can read images off of that sensor much, much quicker, which is how the GH5 was so good for its time. And so I would really like to see them push something a bit further forward. And all the chats that I've had with Panasonic and from what they put out there publicly is they do seem to be really hoping to do that and sort of do something to impress people again, and really show off what their system is capable of. So hopefully it could be something quite impressive. Tyler says, also REGH6, I personally like to see 14 plus stops of dynamic range, dual native ISO, raw output, maybe internal, 4K 120p, HD 240p with decent compression. I think that's it. I mean, in order to keep up with the competition nowadays, really you need 4K 120p. Most cameras nowadays at a certain price point are coming out with 4K 120p, and it is fantastic to have the 4K 120p for cinematic B-roll, for the sort of projects that the GH5 was incredibly popular for, you know, weddings, events, travel, that sort of stuff. Having access to 4K 120p is just brilliant for that sort of work. You know, you rock up at a wedding with 4K 120p, you know, you are going to end up with some very happy clients because it just makes everything feel super dreamy. You know, slow motion dancing, slow motion drinks receptions of people sipping drinks, all the rest of it. Just looks brilliant. You know, confetti in 4K 120p, all of that sort of stuff is absolutely brilliant. So for the sort of work that the GH5 was always strong at, I would really love to see 4K 120p there. Okay, Sony Canada lists, according to Marshall, lists the FX9, the FX6 and the FX3 as handheld camcorders under the general heading of professional cameras. So perhaps the lines are getting blurred between camera types already. Massively so. Massively so. That's been the case even since the FX5 and, well, even since the FS700. Technically, all of these are camcorders up to the Venice. Yeah, Sony still use the term camcorders for everything up to the Venice. Sony, Canon don't. Canon use cinema cameras for their cameras down to the C70. They don't call them camcorders, but yeah, lines are massively getting blurred. Gustavo, what is best for video, the FX3 and the A7S Mark III or the Alpha 1? It really depends. I don't think the A1 is worth it for video alone in terms of the extra cost over the A7S Mark III or the FX3. But I think it is a better camera. I think the 8K mode on that camera is unbelievably good. The image out of it, I was literally taken aback when I saw it for the first time. And I see pretty much every new camera, I see the footage from it. And I was massively surprised when the A7S Mark III came out as to how good that camera was. I was very surprised when I first used the 8K RAW from the R5 on Canon. And I was very surprised when I saw the A1 for the first time. I thought the A1 would be a massive step backwards from the A7S because it's got a higher resolution sensor with smaller photo sites, all the rest of it. It's really not. It's cleaner. It's nicer up to sort of 6400 ISO. It is a stunningly good image and it can do all of that continuously at really manageable data rates and is so detailed, that 8K mode. It looks brilliant. When you compress it down to 4K for 4K delivery, it just looks stunning. So I think the A1 is a better camera, but realistically, I would advise most customers to go for the FX3 or the A7S Mark III if you just need the video side. If you need the still side, then the A1 becomes worth the money because the A1's real strength is as a hybrid camera. And if you are going to be spending your time jumping between the modes and both are equally important to you, it's one of the best cameras on the market right now. Really, really is. Okay. Lover of tech. Yes, the A7C and also those new compact full frame lenses are much better video cameras. I struggle to class a camera as a video camera without any unlimited recording internally. Yes, but remember there's lots of work done that doesn't need unlimited recording internally. For example, what we do here, I use this as an example quite a lot, but what we do here on our YouTube channel, yes, we're creating YouTube videos, but actually, if you think about what we're doing, we have a client, which is ProAV, that they have a need for corporate video, which is effectively what our videos are. And we have a lot of customers out there doing essentially the same sort of thing that we do internally and in-house for ProAV as a brand. You know, making very regular content for social media platforms, for YouTube delivery, for their website, for email marketing, for all of that sort of stuff. There is a constant need for corporate video. Corporate video normally creates images of conferences and things like that. I don't mean that sort of corporate video. I mean video exactly like what we're doing here. Product overviews, advice, all the rest of it. And for that kind of work, you don't even need recording internally. So you can, and we've got customers that are doing that at really high end level and making a lot of money through doing it professionally, that would have no need for unlimited recording time. So it doesn't matter to them. So I find it hard to class something as not a professional video tool when it's perfectly fine for customers like that, because, you know, that is professional work at quite a high level. And so really it's about different tools for different jobs. And some video work, for example, events. I used to do an awful lot of events before working here at ProAV. And, you know, we rock up to film a conference or a theatre show, something like that, with a camera without unlimited recording. It's just a no-go. We wouldn't even consider a camera without unlimited recording for projects like that. So it really depends on the sort of work you're doing. Okay, Joe, R6 versus the A7 Mark III. You could debate that all day long. The A7 III is, of course, an older camera, so it's not a very fair fight. I think the R6 would win on quite a lot of aspects. The R6 does overheat for video. The R6 is one of the cameras that I was disappointed by the most in recent history, simply because, I mean, it's a cracking camera. The image out of it is lovely. And actually, if it's a camera, if I was looking for a camera to buy myself personally right now, just for my own sort of family photography, the R6 would be very high, if not top of that list. So I don't mean it's a bad camera at all. But what I mean by saying I was disappointed by it was that I thought it was going to be Canon's answer to the A7S Mark III. I thought it was going to be their lower resolution, video focused option, and then the R5 was going to be their flagship, all bells and whistles, but overheated because it's got a high resolution sensor. I thought that was what was going to be going on. But the R6 actually overheats more and worse than the R5 does. And so it's not that it's unusable for video because of it, because it does have a lovely image and it downsamples from 5.1K, which produces just as good video as the 4K HQ mode, really, on the R5. So it's lovely, lovely video, but it does overheat. So for a lot of work, that is hard to recommend to customers because there isn't a record mode in that camera where you can just record indefinitely. Like the R5, for example, you can just turn it into normal 4K mode and record as long as you want. Even if you overheat the camera in 8K mode, you can always go back to that mode and record as long as you want. So it's a much more professional offering for video. Whereas the R6, you can't do that. If it overheats, it overheats. You've just got to leave it alone for a bit. So for video, it's much less capable. And the A7 III doesn't do any of that, but the A7 III is still using Sony's old compression. So it's limited to 100 megabits a second, 8-bit, which is just... I mean, the A7 Mark III is a good camera. It's a great sensor. It's actually got really good autofocus. Philip Bloom's been doing a bunch of tests recently, which he's been showing me. And the A7 III still holds up in terms of autofocus. It's really quite good. But the codec is just lacking in today's camera spectrum. Okay, what Canon RF lens would you recommend for event photography and videography? I mean, for events, the Holy Trinity, you know, the 16-35, so it'd be the 15-35 on the Canon in the RF, the 24-70 and the 70-200. You know, every events photographer I pretty much ever known that shoots on Canon has and uses those three, you know, Holy Trinity lenses. So it would be those. The RF lenses are even better than the EF ones, which is what most people were using that I've known, because the RF 24-70 has IS, which makes a huge difference and is something I don't see people talking about anywhere near enough with that lens. It always used to be the case in rewind 5 years ago in the EF world. You know, you had this lens, which is the APS-C 17-55. You had the fantastic 24-70 f2.8, but that didn't have image stabilization, so for video was a bit of a, you had to sort of, you really wished for video that it did have that. And then you had the 24-105, which did have IS, and so was great for video, but was f4. So everyone I ever spoke to about the 24-70 just wished it had IS. It was a big trade-off of, oh, do I go for the IS in the 24-105, or do I go for the nicer picture of the 24-70 f2.8? I don't know which way to go. It was a big thing. And now with the RF, the 24-70 f2.8 has IS, which is massive. It's a really massive deal. So yes, I would recommend that one. Thoughts on the FX6? I think it's an amazing camera. I've spoken about this so many times. I think it is an amazing camera. I think it's one of the best cameras on the market right now for a jack of all trades camera. As a camera that can just walk into any job out there and handle it, the FX6 is one of the top cameras on my lists to do that, really. I mean, it is the very flexible codecs, fantastic image quality, amazing autofocus. I think it's a brilliant camera. It's not perfect. There's things I'd change on it. But yeah, I think it is a very strong camera in the market right now. Okay, Cubase. If you were buying an A7S Mark III or an FX3 and you could initially only afford one workhorse inexpensive zoom, what would you pick? The Tamron 28-75 f2.8? Yes, I think the Tamron is a cracking lens. And I recently did a post here on the channel about what lenses are people using for remount, and that one came up time and time again. So that is definitely a good choice. What I would push people towards, if they can afford it, is the Sigma 24 to 70 millimeter E-mount. There we go. So this Sigma lens is a brilliant lens. It really is. This is a very strong lens from Sigma, and has brilliant image quality. I much prefer it to the Tamron or to their new 28 to 70 contemporary one as well. In terms of image quality, this one's brilliant. But obviously the Tamron and the Sigma contemporary ones are cheaper and they are smaller. So those ones are very popular choices. Okay, Rox Thamon. Why would it make a big difference for RF but not be a big deal for Sony? Unless we're just talking about... Oh, why would IS make a big deal for RF but not be a big deal for Sony? Unless we're talking about IBIS. But then would it matter on the RF mount as there is now IBIS? So in the RF world, I mean, if you're talking about video cameras, they don't have IBIS. So the C70 doesn't have IBIS. If you're talking about their mirrorless cameras like the R5, they do have IBIS and they have very good IBIS. And the RF mount has a huge amount of communication backwards and forwards between the lens and the camera. And that means that the stabilization of the lens and the stabilization of the camera is going to work in tandem, and you're going to get even better IBIS. It is very good IBIS on the R5 with a RF lens with IBIS, and so it does make a big difference for RF, both in terms of cameras like the C70, which don't have IBIS, and the cameras like the R5 that do have IBIS. It is still a big deal for Sony. I think IS is something which I like in every lens. Obviously, you can't have it in every lens, which is why IBIS is so brilliant, is because it gets you image stabilization on every lens. However, having a lens with image stabilization in it is always going to be a good thing. Okay, Joe Horridge, thanks. Does the R6 experience overheating issues when shooting in 1080p? And what kind of circumstances would the R6 experience overheating issues? It's been a while since I've looked at the overheating on the R6, actually, so I'm not sure if something's changed on it. So I don't want to give you actual specs and numbers off the top of my head, just in case I get it wrong, Joe. In terms of what sort of circumstances, it doesn't really matter with the Canons. It's an internal limitation that Canon have put on the cameras to protect the camera's sensors and internals. So it's actually software that Canon have written in, so that after a certain amount of time in different recording modes, it shuts down the camera for a set period of time to stop you pushing the camera past what it can do. And so in testing, people haven't noticed a huge amount of difference, whether it's in the Arctic or whether it's in Florida. So I wouldn't worry too much about what kind of circumstances. It seems to be pretty much across the board. I don't know whether it does it in 1080p. I'm not sure. Okay. BGH, Adam has just said BGH1, but with Lumix S5 internals. I guess that's something that you would like to see. Yes, I agree. With an unmanned camera like that, with a full frame sensor, autofocus is going to be even more important though. And so once Panasonic have got an autofocus system that I think is as good as Canon or Sony's, I would love to see them do that, because then you can just leave it in autofocus and know that it will track a face. But now on their contrast-based autofocus system, I think a BGH1 style body with a full frame sensor is going to be quite difficult to control the focus on. Video editor bloke, out of interest, what causes your computer screen to flash to black occasionally on your live stream? Is it a cable issue or something with your laptop? I wish we knew, video editor bloke. I'm just looking over at Dan in despair, who is shaking his head at me and looking very sad. I don't know. If you know, let me know. My setup here is I have a 2017, is this thing? It's a MacBook Pro, one of the touch bar ones, 2016 MacBook Pro, which is just my work computer that I do all my work on, with a little dongle. It doesn't seem to matter which dongle I use, doesn't matter which HDMI cable I use. It's running into a TV up there, which is my second display, and I'm running scan converter on it to turn it into an NDI source, and for some reason it flickers. It seems to always happen when I click on different screens, and sometimes happens just randomly, and I don't know why. So I think it's to do with scan converter for Macs. It doesn't seem to do it on Windows. I think just NDI and Macs don't really play very friendly together. It's better than it ever used to be, but I still think it's not great. So really what I would like to do at some point is have a proper streaming dedicated laptop for these and for demos and all the rest of it. But I mean, it's not, we're getting by with it, and this one does everything else. And I like to use Mac myself on my work computer, so I don't want work to just change my work computer into a PC selfishly, because I like Macs, even ones from 2016. Blast says, dongles are the Mac user's curse. Completely agree. The sooner Apple bring back proper ports on a MacBook Pro, the better. I love Macs. I really, really do. But I have got no interest in having a laptop with only USB-C ports. Make it a bit thicker. I don't mind having a laptop that's a bit thicker. Make it a bit thicker and give us some proper ports on it. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that. Okay, we are running out of time. Let me see what other questions. Joe says, what would the Canon RF 24-105 f4 lens be a good main lens for events? Absolutely. The nice thing about the 24-105 is that extra zoom range. F4 is a little slow for events like weddings, simply because they get dark. That's the trouble with weddings, is half of it's in bright daylight and half of it's in the dark, particularly dark night floors. And if you do any sorts of weddings which are, to be honest, any kind of weddings, well, no matter what religion and all the rest of it, they often have very important parts of the day in the dark, whether that's inside, like I used to do a lot of weddings in big hotels, and they would all be downstairs in the big event rooms of hotels, and so the entire thing was really quite dimly lit. So F4 was always a bit slow for that, but you know, outside weddings in barns and all the rest of it, you're going to have outside bits, you know, all sorts of different styles of weddings. You're going to run into issues and times when you are in the dark. So f4 can be a bit limiting for that, but the extra zoom range to go from 70 to 105 is really useful at events, particularly for just zooming in and picking people out of crowds, which is brilliant without getting in the way too much. So it really is a trade-off. The best thing to do for events is have multiple lenses, which you change depending on what stage of the day you're in. And the 24-105 f4 would be my go-to for sort of the drinks reception, daylight type filming. But okay, Blaz says, time to test some M1 Silicon Macs. Yes, I agree, but I don't think they're going to be any better. In fact, I think they're going to be worse for NDI. So for some things, absolutely. For NDI, no, unfortunately, as much as I love Macs, Windows is the way to go at the moment. Blaz says thick is beautiful, and video editor bloke says yes to the death of dingoes and then connects it to dongles. Don't kill dingoes, that's very sad. Anyway, I think that is enough for now. Thank you all so much for all your questions, and thank you for joining me for these. We're going to be back next week with another ones. I'm going to have to take a break from these at some point soon because I'm moving house very soon. So I'm going to have to take a break from doing these every Monday so that I can do that. But we will be back with one next week. So join us for that. Cool. Thank you all very much for watching. And if you want to buy any of the products here that we've talked about, just head over to proav.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/XSWD.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/XSWD.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.